Angsty relationships are not endearing, nor are they cute. They are seriously uncomfortable and honestly a little disturbing. Writers, might I suggest that you ditch the angsty relationships and explore real romance. Hi there everyone, Lars here with a writer's rant, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And I fully admit that I am going against the grains with this rant right here because I don't believe that angsty romance in stories is done well, and even when it is done well, it might not really be what you want. Now, there are some instances where it does work really well, like looking at The Breakfast Club or The Lost Boys and a few others, but I have found them to be the exception to the rule. Now, before I proceed with this rant, I need to lay some basic understanding. If we go by the dictionary definition of angst, we are looking at expressions of anxiety, depression, insecurity, and awkwardness born out of those three things manifested within a character. However, when we see these traits in fictional characters, it usually comes across more as brooding, misunderstood, antisocial, and abrasive, ultimately a loner. This portrayal of especially teen leads in fiction is very popular because it resonates with many teenagers at some point or another. And I need to point out that this contrasts sharply with the concept of angst, which is where a character is dark, brooding, and a loner because they have experienced the darkness and the brutality of their world and is grappling with it. And that distinction is important for later. Okay, now that I have that out of the way, let's get back to the rant. I get the reason why angsty teens are so popular. So many of us have been there. It is relatable, and the idea of forming a romantic connection with someone who sweeps away the anxiety and overcomes the misunderstandings to truly get to know the protagonist sounds extremely, supremely romantic. And really, it kind of is. But there are libraries full of the problems that writers make for themselves with this setup. The problem comes down to characterization. Angsty characters are not bad in and of themselves, but so often writers build them up around these problems that created their angstiness, like a bad home life, depression, fringe likes or hobbies, awkwardness, etc. That, in the end, writers ultimately create bland characters who have no personality beyond their problems, and how these problems force them to interact with people in broody, angsty ways. And as a result, when the love interest enters their lives and begins helping them resolve these issues by loving and understanding them, there is nothing underneath all those layers of gunk. A good example of this, as always, is Kirito and Asuna from Sword Art Online. Who really is Kirito? Kirito literally exists to be angsty, to react to the plot, and to love Asuna. It was cute the first time I watched it, and then it was hollow the second time, and downright insulting the third. Another good example is sadly The Duff, which is a movie I actually do like, but the main character Bianca's relationship with Wesley doesn't really bring any development to her angsty personality, because she was good enough all along. Compare this to the movie She's All That, where both Zach and Lainey grow because of their budding relationship. My point is, it's very, very easy to make angsty characters super shallow because writers focus more on their problems and their weirdness and angstiness and on their redemption through romance rather than actually giving them character development from the beginning. That is key. And here I need to address something that is very real and relatable. We change because of the relationships that we have. The people in our lives influence us for better or worse. Again, the idea of angsty romance is very appealing because of this idea that someone, boy or girl, could change their horrible personality for a single loving person. It just sounds so gosh darn beautiful. No! It is manipulative and does not represent change. Not at all. If you ever find that happening in real life, it is usually toxic or abusive. If an angsty character will only change for one person, that is uncomfortably clingy and doesn't show real growth. While Kirito does help out numerous people, he refuses to overcome his angsty tendencies until he and Asuna pair off. Compare this to the real black swordsman, Guts, who is influenced and changed by not just Casca, but also Puck, Shirika, Fanise, and really the rest of the gang. Each person in the group reaches him differently, and together they help him rediscover his humanity. The same can be said of the entire story in Goblin Slayer. It's another great example of truly characters going through angst developing. This all comes down to character growth. Angsty characters must grow out of being angsty, or they ultimately fail their character arcs. Many writers keep their protagonists steeped in their angsty stew, because if it wasn't that case, then who are these characters? The only time that we see them come out of that is when they are around their romantic interest. So yes, they fail. They fail to create an interesting character with a good character arc. This is because they have mixed up angsty with angst. Characters who typify angst are never supposed to actually beat it, but instead they learn to live with it, which is their triumph. Angstiness, on the other hand, is the process of growing up, and eventually you must overcome that. It is meant to be defeated. If a character cannot overcome their angstiness, they have not grown and their character arc is incomplete, whereas a character steeped within angst is trying to come to terms with the darkness of their world and what has happened to them throughout their character arc in order to become stronger. Again, this cycles back around to writers making their characters' personalities simply be their angst, and that is because they think that angstiness equals angst, but it's two very different things. Angstiness is growing up, angst is actually understanding the world for what it is. Now, you might be saying, Lars, it sounds like an angsty romance is pretty good so long as I give my characters real personalities and some nice character arcs. Awesome, thanks for the advice, I'm clicking off now. Nope, just you wait. Angsty romance can work when done right, but it is also not the best you can do. A real romance takes time, it takes connection, it takes spark, it takes humor, adversity, hardship, and resilience. Angstiness has a tendency to smother all those attributes to a good romance. Take your time and fully develop why two people fall in love. Even if you are a garden/discovery writer, understand why people fall for each other and track that. Take your time to understand how relationships grow, because that is the key to writing good romance. Memorable, fulfilling romance is built on so much more than the wish fulfillment and cheap gratification of an angsty teen realizing their crush. So, long story short, romance is hard to write, but taking the quick and easy route with angsty relationships is a pathway to bland, forgettable, and potentially toxic relationships and characters. Treat your characters well and understand what it means to use angsty characters. That will make your story and your characters so much stronger, relatable, and awesome. So, if you are looking for more writing advice, please go check out our podcast episodes, found on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, the works. We have writing exercises for you to check out over at our Pinterest page, and we have writing discussions at our subreddit. Links for all of those sites are in the description below. And thank you for joining us on this adventure that we call writing. And until the next video, y'all, tschüss.